It was a quiet Tuesday evening, the kind where the world seems to slow down and all you hear is the hum of your own thoughts. I was sprawled on my couch, scrolling through my phone, mindlessly flicking through notifications when a sharp knock at the door jolted me upright. My heart did a little skip. Nobody knocks like that unless they mean business. I wasn't expecting anyone. Most nights, I'm alone in my apartment. The only sounds coming from the faint buzz of the TV or the occasional car passing by outside. I set my phone down, swung my legs off the couch, and walked to the door, my socks scuffing against the hardwood floor. When I opened it, there she was. Lisa, my neighbor's wife, standing in nothing but a towel, her dark hair damp and clinging to her shoulders, her eyes wide with something I couldn't quite place: urgency, maybe, or desperation. Before I could say a word, she tilted her head slightly, her lips parting as she asked, "Are you busy right now?" Those words hung in the air like a storm about to break, heavy with something unspoken. Let me tell you what followed turned my quiet, predictable life upside down in ways I never could have imagined. I live in a small apartment complex, the kind where the walls are thin enough to hear your neighbors' late night arguments or the clatter of their dishes in the sink. It's not like I'm nosy, but you can't help noticing things when you're home all day: whose car pulls into the lot at odd hours, who's got a new delivery guy dropping off packages every other day, who's pacing their balcony on a late night phone call. My neighbors Tom and Lisa moved in about a year ago. Tom's a big guy, broad-shouldered with a laugh that carries through the hallway. He works in construction, always coming home in those dusty work boots that leave a faint trail of dirt on the carpet outside their door. Lisa's different, quieter, but not shy. She's got this way of looking at you like she's sizing you up, but not in a judgmental way. It's more like she's curious, like she's trying to figure out what makes you tick. They seemed like a normal couple, at least from the outside. I'd wave at them in the parking lot, maybe chat about the weather or the landlord's latest maintenance fumble, but that was the extent of it. We weren't friends, just neighbors who exchange pleasantries. Till that night, I'm not the kind of guy who gets tangled up in drama. My life's pretty straightforward. I work from home, coding for a tech startup. My day is a predictable rhythm of coffee at 8 a.m., emails by 9 o'clock, lunch at noon, and maybe a run in the evening if I'm feeling ambitious. I like it that way. Simple, no surprises. But when Lisa stood there clutching that towel like it was her lifeline, her knuckles pale against the fabric, my routine felt like it belonged to someone else. I must have looked like a complete idiot, just staring at her, my brain scrambling to process why she was at my door, half-dressed, asking if I was busy. My first thought was that something was wrong. Maybe an emergency, a burst pipe, or worse. Is everything okay? I asked, my voice coming out dumber than I meant it to, like I was a kid caught off guard. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped inside uninvited, her bare feet silent on the floor. She closed the door behind her and the air in the room shifted like it was holding its breath. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper, but steady, like she'd rehearsed this moment. "It's about Tom." My stomach did a flip. Tom? What could this possibly have to do with me? I barely knew the guy beyond our hallway. Small talk, quick chats about the Super Bowl or the potholes in the parking lot. I gestured toward the couch, trying to act normal, like this wasn't the weirdest thing that had ever happened to me. "Okay, sure. Sit down," I said, hoping my voice didn't betray how rattled I was. My apartment's small. It's just a one-bedroom with a couch that's seen better days and a coffee table cluttered with empty water bottles and a laptop. I'm always forgetting to close. It's not exactly a place you invite people into, especially not your neighbor's wife in a towel. Lisa sat, still gripping that towel tight, her posture rigid, like she was bracing herself. She didn't look scared exactly, but there was something intense about her, like she was carrying a secret too heavy to keep. "I know this is weird," she started, her eyes flicking to mine before settling on the floor. "And I'm sorry for just showing up like this, but I didn't know who else to go to." I leaned forward, my curiosity outweighing my unease. What could possibly make her come to me of all people? Just the guy across the hall, not exactly a confidant. "What's going on?" asked, keeping my tone as neutral as I could. She took a deep breath, her shoulders rising and falling. And that's when the story started spilling out piece by piece like a puzzle I didn't even know I was supposed to solve. She told me Tom had been acting strange for months. First, it was little things. Staying out late, coming home with vague excuses about work or traffic, snapping at her over nothing, like leaving a dish in the sink or forgetting to pick up milk. But then it escalated. Started locking his phone, something he never used to do. She'd hear him whispering on calls in the middle of the night, stepping out onto their balcony, so she couldn't make out the words. A few weeks ago, she found something in his jacket, picked a receipt for a motel she'd never heard of. Dated for a night. He'd told her he was working late. The receipt was crumpled like he'd meant to throw it away but forgot. "I don't know what to do," she said, her eyes locking onto mine, searching for something reassurance. "Maybe your answers. I think he's cheating, but I don't have proof. I can't confront him without being sure." I sat there trying to process it all. My mind was racing, but I didn't know what to say. Why was she telling me this? I'm not a detective, not a therapist, just a guy who spends his days staring at code and occasionally overhearing his neighbors' lives through the walls. "Lisa, I'm sorry, but why me?" I asked, genuinely confused, my hands spreading out like I was trying to grasp the situation. She hesitated, her lips pressing together, then leaned closer, her voice dropping even lower, like she was afraid the walls might hear. "Because you're always watching," she said. "Not in a creepy way, but I've seen you. You notice things. You're observant. And I know you're home all the time." I thought, maybe you've seen something. Maybe you know something. I felt a chill run down my spine. She wasn't wrong. I do notice things. It's hard not to when you work from home and your desk faces a window overlooking the parking lot. I'd seen Tom's truck come and go at odd hours. Noticed him talking to someone in his car a few times, his head bent low like he didn't want to be seen, but I'd never thought much of it. People have lives, right? They run errands, meet friends, do things I don't need to know about. But now, with Lisa sitting there, her eyes pleading for answers, those little details started to feel like clues in a game I hadn't signed up to play. "I don't know anything for sure," I said carefully, choosing my words like I was stepping through a minefield. "But I've seen him leave late a few times. Okay? And yeah, sometimes he's on his phone a lot out in his truck. But that could be anything, right? Work stuff, maybe." She shook her head like she'd already convinced herself it was more than that. "It's not just that, there's more." Her voice was steady now, but there was a tremor beneath it, like she was holding herself together by sheer will. She told me about how Tom had started getting packages delivered to a P.O. box instead of their apartment, which she only found out about when she saw a confirmation email on their shared computer. He'd been distant, barely touching her, barely talking to her beyond the bare minimum. And then there was the second phone she found hidden in his toolbox. One she didn't even know he had. It was a cheap burner phone, the kind you buy when you don't want your calls traced. To turn it on, but it's locked. She said, "I need to know what's going on. I can't keep living like this, wondering if my marriage is a lie." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her to talk to Tom, to lay it all out and demand answers. But the way she looked at me like I was her only hope made me hesitate. I could see the weight she was carrying, the way it was wearing her down. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. She bit her lip, her eyes flicking to the side like she was weighing her words. Then she said, "I want you to help me find out. Watch him. See where he goes, who he's with. You're good at noticing things, and he won't suspect you. Please." I should have said no. Should have told her this was way out of my league, that I wasn't some private investigator with a fedora and a notepad. I'm just a guy who likes his quiet life, his predictable days. But there was something about her, the way her voice cracked just a little on that, "Please." The way she looked so vulnerable in that towel that made me feel like I couldn't just walk away. Ka said before I could stop myself, "Keep an eye out. But I'm not promising anything." It was a weak caveat and we both knew it. I was in whether I wanted to be or not. She smiled, a small, grateful smile that made her look younger, softer for just a second. "Thank you," she said, standing up, the towel shifting slightly as she moved. I knew I could trust you. And then just like that, she was gone, slipping out the door as quietly as she'd come in, leaving me sitting there staring at the spot where she'd been, just wondering what the hell I just agreed to. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about Lisa's visit. It was like she'd flipped a switch in my brain, turning my quiet apartment into a command center for something I didn't fully understand. Suddenly, every noise in the hallway, every car pulling into the lot felt like it mattered. I started paying closer attention to Tom's comings and goings, my eyes flicking to the window every time I heard the rumble of his truck. I even started keeping a notebook, jotting down times and details like I was some kind of amateur sleuth. Felt ridiculous. Scribbling 11:47 p.m. Tom leaves in truck like I was in a movie. But it also felt kind of thrilling. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just coding in my apartment, answering emails, living the same day over and over. I was part of something bigger, something real. A week later, I had something to tell her. Seen Tom leave at 2 a.m. the night before, his truck pulling out of the lot with a low growl. He didn't come back until 5. I didn't know where he'd gone, but it was enough to make me curious and uneasy. I knocked on Lisa's door. The next morning, making sure Tom was at work, she let me in. And this time, she was fully dressed in jeans and a sweater. But the tension in her face was the same, maybe worse. I told her what I'd seen, and her eyes lit up, not with excitement, but with something closer to dread, like she'd been hoping I'd seen nothing at all. "That's not normal," she said, her voice sharp. "He told me he was home all night, said he couldn't sleep, so we watched TV in the living room. We started talking more after that, meeting up when Tom was out piecing together what we knew." She showed me the motel receipt, the one she'd found in his jacket. It was for a place about 30 miles out of town, some known-name spot off the highway called the Starlight Inn. The date was from 2 weeks ago, and the charge was for a single night paid in cash. "I want to go there," she said one day, her voice firm, like she'd made up her mind, and there was no going back. "I want to see if they know him, if he's been there before." I tried to talk her out of it. Snooping around a motel sounded like a bad idea, the kind of thing that gets you in trouble. "Lisa, maybe you should just talk to him," I said. "This is getting intense," but she was insistent. Her jaw set with me. She said, "Can't do this alone." So we went. It was a Saturday afternoon and we drove in my car, a beat-up sedan that blended into the background, figuring Tom wouldn't recognize it if he happened to be around. The motel was as seedy as I'd imagined. Flickering neon sign spelling, out Starlight with a missing S, cracked pavement, and a vibe that screamed, "Don't ask questions." Lisa marched right up to the front desk, all confidence, like she did this kind of thing every day. The clerk, a bored-looking guy with a stained shirt and a 5 o'clock shadow, barely looked up from his phone. Lisa asked if he'd seen a guy matching Tom's description, all broad construction worker type. The clerk shrugged and said he didn't keep track of guests. But when Lisa slid a 20 across the counter, his memory got a little sharper. "Yeah, big guy, construction type. Comes in sometimes, usually with a woman." "Not you, though," said it casually, like it was no big deal. But I saw Lisa's face go pale, her lips tightening into a thin line. She thanked him, her voice clipped, and we left. The drive back was quiet, the kind of silence that feels like it's pressing down on you. I could tell she was hurting, but she didn't cry, didn't yell. She just stared out the window, her jaw tight, her hands folded in her lap. When we got back to the complex, she turned to me and said, "I need to know who she is. I need to see her." Her voice was steady, but there was a fire in it, a determination that scared me a little. I didn't know how to respond. This was getting deeper than I'd signed up for. But I was in it now. I couldn't just walk away. Not when she looked at me like that, like I was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Over the next few weeks, we became a team. Lisa and I, it wasn't romantic, nothing like that, but there was a bond forming, a shared purpose that pulled us together. We'd meet in my apartment or hers, always when Tom was gone, going over what we'd found. I started following him, not close, just enough to see where he went, keeping my distance in my car or on foot. One night, I tailed him to a bar downtown, A dive called Rusty's with a neon beer sign in the window. He met a woman there, tall, blonde, definitely not Lisa. They didn't stay long, just grabbed a drink and left together in his truck, his arm around her waist as they walked out. I snapped a few blurry photos with my phone, feeling like a creep. But knowing Lisa needed to see them, my heart was pounding the whole time, like I was doing something illegal. Even though I was just sitting in my car across the street, when I showed Lisa the pictures the next day, she didn't cry then either. She just nodded, her eyes narrowing as she studied the grainy image of the blonde. "That's her," she said, her voice flat, like she'd been expecting it all along. I knew there was someone. She didn't tell me what she planned to do next, but I could see the wheels turning in her head, her mind working through the next steps. I tried to talk her into confronting Tom, getting it over with, but she shook her head. "I need to know everything first," she said. "I need to know why he's doing this." Things got weirder after that. Tom started acting paranoid, checking over his shoulder when he left the apartment, scanning the parking lot like he knew someone was watching. I wondered if he'd seen me, if I'd been too obvious, trailing him to the bar, or lingering by my window too long. Lisa started getting jumpy too, second-guessing everything. She'd asked me if I thought Tom knew if he was onto us, her voice tight with worry. I didn't have answers, but I tried to keep her calm. "We're careful," I'd say, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "He doesn't know anything." But I wasn't sure I believed it. The whole thing was starting to feel like a house of cards, one wrong move away from collapsing. One night, Lisa knocked on my door again. This time, fully dressed, but looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were shadowed, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. "I found something," she said, holding out a USB drive, her hand trembling slightly. It was in his toolbox with the second phone. My heart started racing. Whatever was on that drive, it wasn't going to be good. We sat at my kitchen table, my laptop open, and plugged it in. What we found made my stomach turn. It was photos, dozens of them, of the blonde from the bar. Some of her alone, some with Tom, laughing, their heads close together. There were emails too between him and someone named C talking about money, dates, places. Phrases like drop-off point and keep it quiet stood out, making my skin crawl. It wasn't just an affair. It was something bigger, something shadier. Like Tom was mixed up in something he shouldn't be. Lisa didn't say much as we scrolled through it all. She just sat there, her hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. Finally, she looked at me and said, "I'm going to confront him tomorrow, but I need you there. I don't trust him not to lie." Her voice was steady, but there was a crack in it, a hint of the fear she was trying to hide. I didn't want to be in the middle of that, didn't want to be in the room when she tore into her husband. But I couldn't say no. Not after everything we'd been through, all the late-night talks, the motel trip, the photos. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there." The next day, we waited until Tom got home from work. Lisa invited him to her apartment, and I was there, sitting in the corner on a rickety dining chair, trying to blend into the background. My heart was in my throat, my hands sweaty as I gripped the arms of the chair. Lisa didn't waste time. She laid it all out. The motel receipt, the photos from the bar, the USB drive. She didn't raise her voice, didn't cry, just presented the evidence like a lawyer in a courtroom. Tom's face went through a dozen emotions. Confusion, anger, something else I couldn't read. Maybe fear. He didn't deny it, not exactly, but he didn't confess either. "You don't understand," he kept saying, his voice rough, his hands clenching and unclenching. "It's not what you think." But when Lisa pressed him, asking who C was, what the money was for, he shut down. His eyes flicked to me just for a second, and I felt a jolt, like he was seeing me for the first time. Then he grabbed his keys and stormed out, the door slamming behind him, leaving us both sitting there in a silence that felt louder than any argument. After that, things changed. Tom moved out a week later, his truck loaded with boxes, his face set in a scowl as he drove away. Lisa didn't talk about him much after that. She thanked me, said she couldn't have done it without me, but there was a distance now, like she was embarrassed. I'd seen so much of her life. Her pain laid bare. I didn't push. I went back to my routine: coffee at 8, emails by 9 o'clock, lunch at noon. But it wasn't the same. Now, I'd gotten a taste of something bigger, something that made my quiet life feel too small, too safe. I'd been pulled into a world of secrets and suspicion, and even though it was over, it left a mark. I still see Lisa in the hallway sometimes. She smiles, waves, but we don't talk like we used to. I don't know what happened with Tom. If she ever got the full story, if she figured out who C was or what he was really doing, I don't ask. But I know one thing. That night, she knocked on my door in a towel asking if I was busy. Pulled me into a world I didn't know existed right across the hall. And even now, as I sit at my desk coding, watching the parking lot through my window, I can't help but wonder what else I've been missing. What other secrets are hiding just out of sight, waiting for another knock to pull me back in. I started noticing other things in the complex after that. There's the guy in 3 Bites who always leaves at dawn with a duffel bag, never saying a word. The woman in to see who gets flowers delivered every Friday, but I've never seen a boyfriend. The maintenance guy who lingers a little too long in the laundry room, always glancing at his phone. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just my imagination running wild after everything with Lisa and Tom. But sometimes late at night when the complex is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts, I wonder if I'm still watching, still waiting for the next puzzle to solve. And I wonder if Lisa is watching too, across the hall carrying her own questions, her own scars.